Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is time for another one of those weekly Wednesday update videos showing y'all just kind of what I've got growing on here in my indoor gardening situation while I've still got so much lovely ground cover going on outside. I thought this week we'd start upstairs in the studio because I'm quite pleased to show you what's going on with those two plants I brought in last fall. So let's get on it. Here you can see the two peppers that I brought in last fall. They have been ravaged by the aphid wars, but luckily the ladybugs and some good hardcore trimming back have helped me kind of get the upper hand on this situation. What we've got here is one of the purple freaks. Now, while this pepper didn't have a whole lot of flavor, it did have a whole lot of heat, so I'm really excited to see all the new growth coming off on the sides since I cut the tops off. And this sand dollar back here is doing great. This thing is up over my waist in height, and all of this new growth, excuse the mess in the background, but all of this new growth has got some good thick leaves going on. I would say these leaves are in fact much thicker than what's growing downstairs under the more appropriate light spectrum. While this is just an LED shop light, so it's the wrong shade of Kelvin as it were, it definitely seems to have the intensity. So that's kind of a plus for it. In theory, these plants shouldn't have grown at all under this light, but here we go. So, yeah, let's check out what's going on in the dungeon. Here's kind of an overall look as we approach what's growing on here down in the dungeon. I've got a couple of donut cases going with seeds here. The Black Beauty eggplant I was already able to transplant, I think, 3 out of. And it looks like there's at least one more keeper in there. So that's good. I'll have a nice start on my eggplants this year. Maybe I'll actually get some. Those didn't actually start to produce fruit for me until like 2 weeks before it got cold, and they didn't have anywhere near enough time. Here we've got some open pollinated Orange Habanero. These are ridiculously open pollinated. They're from our last season in Penticton. And I wasn't sure how many of them would sprout, but as you can see here, quite a few did. Now, I may or may not get freaks out of this because I was growing a lot of different varieties of peppers right on top of each other, but I'm totally okay with that if it does happen. That would be an interesting starting point in Orange Habanero, and none of those peppers were horrible peppers. Here we can see the current top shelf. We'll get looking at that one there in a second. The tomatoes seem to be enjoying being a little bit more under the lights here. I think this one here is showing me some signs of deficiency. I'm going to have to look into it. I think Nate's Story, Bright Agrotech, has a chart out there. Makes it really easy to diagnose what's going on with your plants. So I'll check into that. If you're having leaf issues, you might want to do that yourself. All in all, though, I guess I need to move that tomato forward a little bit. It's not getting the greatest light back in the corner. But they seem to be pretty happy. These pepper starts, I haven't had to get rid of any this week, so everyone still lives, which is excellent. Little tiny reaper down there. These things are taking forever and sprouting just like one at a time, but I still got snow outside, so I've got time. Now, here we have the $25 LED lights that I'm using for my plants on their PVC. Quick video about that a couple days ago. So it doesn't really have enough time under its belt, so to speak, to judge how these plants are responding to it. But that said, they all do look a little bit perkier, and they all do seem to be going straight up towards the lights. So that's not bad. Very hopeful there, very hopeful there. As you can see, I've got my prize billy goat back there. This is the Black Naga. So I'm really putting a bit of a prayer into this one, hoping they do very well. I'd like to see all of these other peppers, follow suit, look like that before too long. Waiting is. If we follow off the corner here, though, we've got that pumpkin. Doing an interesting little rooting test with pumpkins. I'm gonna try at, well, it's basically one of these nodes here, those points there, to grow some roots and maybe be able to separate this from the main plant so that this one pumpkin plant can, if not produce fruit for me in the basement, can at least give me some starts that I can transplant to outside. I mean, I know they don't like being transplanted, but you know, why not give it a shot? And I noticed last year when I was moving the pumpkin vines to mow the lawn, a lot of those nodes seemed to have roots that were going out and into the ground and not too happy with me, so I quickly stopped moving the vines and just started mowing around them. But if that can root and I can get multiple pumpkin plants on a good solid age start from this little tiny cup here, then I figured that's a win situation. Could be wrong. Might fail completely, but that sure looks a lot greener than the rest of the plant. And it's farthest away from the lights. Well, speaking of farthest away from the lights, I've taken those 3 tomato plants that were in the solo cups at the end of the hydroponic garden, the Eurogrower there, and I've kind of put them down in this bit of floor space there, because it gets a lot of light cast at it that's wasted from different areas, and I thought, well, I don't technically need these plants, so let's use them to test the space. I am going to transplant at least one of those into a larger pot, but I haven't decided which one yet, so it hasn't been done. Now, speaking of the hydroponics, take a closer look at that. After our little chat last week, I topped both of these plants in an effort to make them a little bit bushier. The leaves are still a little thin and weak for me, but we do appear to have a little bit of growth coming out here and a little further down. And it's the same situation on the other plant there. So, in theory, it worked. They're still alive, and it should start pushing out in the next couple weeks or so. Would be nice. Over here in another Kratky type situation. Focus. Got one of the yard fatales I pulled out. Seems to be doing alright. Starting to stretch a little bit more for the light, but I'm okay with that. It's a pretty squat little plant. So, yeah, this works. So far the Kratky attempts are going fairly well. Going well enough that I am seriously considering taking out 1 or 2 of these cucumber plants and putting them into a chicken bucket or a coffee can or peanut butter jug, whatever I've got that will hold the water and hold the plant cup. So, be interesting to see how well they do though, and to give these ones a little bit more space in there. Tomato growing in this Eurogrower is pretty happy. Again, it's a little light in the leaves, so I'm thinking there's some kind of a nutrient deficiency going on. Might be time to change out the water and start fresh. But these herbs are doing alright. Rosemary, so slow to grow. And oregano is just kind of slowly sprawling out and taking out the corner there. Basil's looking nice and solid. With this oregano, I don't know. I think I'll move that to under the other light and give it another week or so. Maybe 2 weeks. We'll see. As far as the peppers in the actual hydroponics, they seem to be doing a little bit better now that some of them are getting more light. Need to get the rest of these solo cups out and plant it into other containers, but for now it's a matter of tight spaces and lighting requirements. I did end up transplanting the nicer looking Reaper into this back corner container in the hydro, so still got 3 in soil. There's 1 over on the counter, and gave 1 to the boy to grow because he wanted to grow a plant, so I'm going to encourage that behavior. Because of the developing pest problem down here, I have been slowly bringing ladybugs down. It appears that one has decided to stick around at least. Got a couple more in a cup here. There's one hanging out on the bottom. Won't focus through 2 layers of plastic, but there's another one there. So I'm just going to put these guys, well, somewhere in here, and I hope they enjoy the meal. I've also decided to take some very popular advice and plant some garlic in and amongst these young plants, because apparently these pests don't care for it. Now, I understand a garlic spray would be harmful to the ladybugs as well, but I'd like to think they're smart enough to, you know, stay off of the garlic plants if they're going to be a problem. So there you go. A look at the ever-expanding situation down here in my dungeon. It's nice to see some of these plants progressing. Very pleased to say that so many of those Orange Habanero seeds sprouted. A little worried about that, not anymore. And yeah, so far so good. Those little LEDs seem to be doing just fine. And on that note, I've got some puttering around and planting of garlic bulbs and such that I need to take care of, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But thank you all so much for sticking around, joining me on these little adventures as I do the best I can to keep something growing, even though I've got all that delightful white ground cover going on out there. Alright, cheers! I will see you guys next week.